Hi, I'm John Dudley, and for those of you who know me know that I'm a very active technical writer. I'm a competitive archer, but most importantly, at least to me right now, is I'm a die-hard bow hunter. And for those of you who also know me know that I do a lot of honest feedback writing, and I do a lot of product comparison or product testing. I get countless numbers of emails each day from people wanting my honest feedback on different products or how this brand compares to that brand. And to be honest with you, even if it's something that I don't personally use, I do at least give you the straightforward truth on the question that I'm being asked. And there's been one product on the market here that's had a very aggressive marketing campaign, as well as some very persuasive media, specifically some of their video media, promoting a product and a technology that was said to have a clear advantage to bow hunters. And those technologies would be an arrow, and specifically the Maxima, that's marketed to have a dual spine weight forward technology. And what I've done was I actually went to my local retailer and bought these arrows over the counter, and they were actually over $80 for 6 arrows, which was extremely expensive. But just so that I'm not misquoting anyone, I do want to at least just read off the back of this package. We talk about the dual spine, and pretty much it says that it has a heavier front end for superior accuracy, and it also says that the front spine of the arrow is different, which maximizes forgiveness and stays on track better. And then for the dual spine, it also says that the back spine of the arrow is lighter and stiffer in spine, which harnesses energy and gets on track faster. Now, what I did as a consumer and as a bow hunter, that are actually several things that did have some appeal to me. So what I did was, again, I bought these and I conducted several tests. Okay, the first test that I did, which I would challenge any of you to do this, because again, this is a product that's highly marketed right now, and to the consumer is a lot more expensive to buy over the counter because you're expecting to get more for what you're paying. But the first test was really simple. I just took a full-length arrow and actually just marked an arrow. I divided it in half. I measured it, divided it in half, and marked that arrow. And just you could actually balance that arrow perfectly on your finger in the dead center of that shaft, which right away would tell me that there actually was not, extra weight in the front of that shaft as it was advertised. Okay, then the next thing I guess that I did was to actually challenge that dual spine technology using a simple machine that any of you can buy called, this is an Ace Archery Tackle Model 107 arrow spine tester. Now typically when you test spine on an arrow, you do it from 28 inches. You support it at 28 inches, and then you apply a weight to the shaft, and that standardized weight forces the shaft down, it bends the shaft, and that gives you arrow spine. Okay, so what I wanted to do was I actually wanted to test the front and the rear portion of this arrow shaft. So what I'm going to do to show you those results is I actually need to slide this forward simply because I want to test just literally half the shaft, not the entire length of the shaft. And so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to slide this arrow all the way down here. And so this is the front portion of the shaft, and I'm going to apply this weight. Okay, the weight is applied, and you can see an approximate measurement right there. I'm going to take this weight off, and I'm going to slide this arrow all the way the opposite direction, so that now we're actually testing it in a different area of the spine. And I can apply the weight, and again you can see that it's exactly the same. Okay, now what I'm going to do, just so that I can test this shaft in 2 different areas, is I'm going to flip this shaft around. I'm going to put this shaft on here. I'm going to slide it all the way one direction So now we're actually testing a third area of the arrow shaft. We're going to apply the weight. Once again, you can see the exact same spine. And lastly, we're going to slide it the entire length. And what's important about this last measurement is this is actually forcing exactly on the portion of the shaft that they leave exposed and claim to have the stiffer spine. So we'll go ahead and apply the weight, and again you can see that there's been the same measurement on all 4 of those spine tests. Now the next thing that I did just to test the weight forward technology was I actually took one of their arrows, I cut it to about 28 inches. The reason I did that is because the average archer out there has a 29-inch draw length, so he'll shoot anywhere from a 27.5 to a 28-inch arrow. So I took that arrow and I've cut it perfectly in half, and I also did the same thing with just a standard Easton Axis, which is the other arrow that's on the market that's highly popular right now. So you can easily see that I have 2 arrow shafts, an Easton Axis and the Maxima. Both of them have the standard knock that they come with, but they do not have a point weight. Okay, they don't have a point. We're just measuring shafts and knocks as they would come out of the box. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is on a scale, I'm going to actually measure both of these halves. And the reason this is important is because the amount of difference there is between the front and the back of the back half of the arrow, the amount of difference there is would actually have a lot to do with the true weight forward. Obviously, the less difference there is between the back and the front, or the more difference there is, could really dictate the true weight forward or weight rearward measurement. So this is the front, which is supposed to be the weight forward portion. Okay. So we're going to put this on a scale, 122.6. Now this is the rear portion, okay, 127.8, okay, or 127.9 now. So we're going to take that off. We'll double check these, okay, 122.6, 127.9. So, I mean, we're literally looking at 5.5 grains difference. The back portion of the shaft is actually 5.5 grains heavier than the front, but there is a 5.5 grain difference between the front and the back. Now we're going to take a standard Easton Axis, and we're going to set that on there, 131.4, and we're going to set the back on 135. Okay, we're going to do this one more time, 131.4. and 135.2. So we literally have on a standard Easton Axis only 4 grains difference. The back portion of the shaft is 4 grains heavier than the front, whereas on the Maxima it's actually a grain and a half heavier. So there's actually more weight forward technically. Once you put your point in there, you're going to have more weight forward in a standard Easton Axis than you would in that particular arrow. Now, weight forward, or a lot of weight in the front of your shaft, is actually something, for those of you who follow me, know that I strongly promote having a high front of center, or FOC, on an arrow shaft. And actually, Easton several years ago came out with brass inserts that go inside of any of the shafts that are the Axis or the HIT system shafts, and these are 75 grains, but they also break off to 50 grains. And I have promoted this for several years because I'm a firm believer in having a high FOC, and this allows you to put a standard 100 grain broadhead on the front of your arrow, which flies really nice, but have a very increased amount of weight in the front of your shaft. So when we talk about true weight forward technology, a standard Easton that has a HIT system actually offers much more of a weight forward design than at least what we've tested, and these tests are very clear. The next thing that I should really talk about, because there's been a lot of emphasis on the weight forward technology as well as the dual spine. And to be honest with you, what's most important to me, and you could probably actually see it on this arrow, I have several different marks on here where I tested this on this particular Maxima. But what's most important to me on an arrow shaft of any kind is consistency in the spine. Okay, and again, that spine is tested by flexing that arrow. And what happens is, on any type of a tube or your arrow, the thickness of that arrow shaft for the entire radius all the way around has to be exact and consistent. If there's any variance in that thickness, then you create what's either called a high spot or a low spot in the spine. Okay, now Easton's technology that they've had out for as long as I can remember is a carbon that's actually pulled in a uniform technology, and they have always advertised, and they even offer their warranty to a consistent straightness and spine rating, because they really have been doing that the longest. Now, all the way back to traditional archers that were shooting wooden arrows, and for any of you out there who remember this, they searched for wooden arrows that had the consistent spine. If one was bendier than the other one, they did not shoot the same. They all have to have the same stiffness, and that's what promotes good grouping. Now, on a primitive or an older style carbon design, they actually do, the carbon is actually rolled. And I'm going to just give you an example with a simple piece of paper, okay? If you have the carbon that's actually rolled, then what you have is, in order to create that seam, you actually have an overlap. Okay, now yes, this overlap is sanded down and it is removed to where that arrow looks uniform. However, on the inside of that shaft, you can still tell that there's a portion of that arrow shaft that has a thicker spot, or what we call a high spine of the arrow. Okay, now that high spine is actually the stiffest portion of that tube is in the radius. So if that particular overlap is facing straight up on one shot and it's being bent by your bow as you're shot in the archer's paradox, it'll actually be the stiffest. Whereas if that is turned more towards the side where you have your weaker walls up and down, then as that paradox happens, it's actually a little bit weaker. So when we talk about spine, I think it would be a heck of a lot more important for the consumer to focus on spine consistency. And again, that's the thickness of your arrow shaft around the entire radius, because if you pull 100 arrows out of a box and shoot 100 arrows that are all consistent in spine, they're going to group the same. Whereas if some of them have a high spine in different locations depending on how your nocks turn on your arrow, then those arrows will group differently. And that's been proven over the years of many target archers. So, again, these tests are not to directly belittle anyone by any means. But again, this was something that had my interest. It's something that I've answered many emails on, and I just thought that I'd give you the straightforward truth on what I found when testing these particular arrows. I'm not saying that they won't shoot. I'm not saying they won't shoot a group. What I am saying is, for the amount of money that I paid for those 6 arrows out of the box, I sure would have expected them to do what's written on that box. So for the last test, I'm actually going to go outside and I'm going to shoot some arrows, some fletched the standard way and then some fletched backwards, just to see if that weight forward dual spine technology, how that actually develops onto a target when shot out of a bow. So I hope you've learned a little bit from this, and let's see how they do outside. Okay, now for this last test, what I'm going to do is I've got arrows fletched the standard direction with the weight forward and then backwards, so the weight is rearward. And I'm going to shoot these arrows at 40 yards, and the reason I'm shooting at a longer distance is you would assume the further out you go, the more your arrows would spread apart, and the more those two different technologies would separate themselves. So just going to shoot these arrows down there, and we'll take a look at how that technology actually goes to the target. Okay, now we're going to shoot a standard Easton Axis. I'm going to do my best to get an approximate sight mark. Good guess. Okay, let's head down there. Wait for the camera. So this is a fair and honest test. Again, I'm mechanically shooting, so you know there is a possibility to have not a perfect shot, but still the point here being that, well, two things. One, there was not a noticeable difference between that technology being reversed, and then also a standard Easton Axis with the standard hit insert is definitely a proven performer and a consistent arrow, but more importantly than that, to all of you as a consumer, a far less cost, and you can look that up literally anywhere if you do a price comparison. So you know that, at least from my point of view, is a straightforward and honest feedback on the truth about arrow shafts.